Welcome to the Porsche Club Insider, your one stop for all things Porsche and PCA. Here's your host, Vu Gwyn, and the Insider crew.
Welcome, everyone, to episode 150. As this episode drops, I want to welcome a special guest. But before I do that, I want to say happy Martin Luther King Day. Today, we honor life and legacy of Martin Luther King, the man who brought hope and healing to America. So, if you're listening to this, maybe relax, grab a cup of coffee. I want to thank Pirelli, our sponsor of PCA Insider. Without their support, this would be much harder for us to do. At the table, we have our usual cast of characters. We have Manny Albin, Damon Lowney with his triggering cup. I think he had right here oh, you moved it.
Yeah.
You moved it not to trigger the viewers.
Yes.
There's a special reason why, if you're looking or watching on YouTube, Damon is especially happy today, and we'll get to that in a minute. But the special guest we have today, a 15-year member, an author, an owner of Team TGM, and a professional driver in the IMSA series. We've seen him around Maryland quite a bit. He's one of our locals. Ted Giovanis, welcome to Porsche Club Insider.
Thank you, View. Happy to be here with all of you.
I will say that there's times we go to a lot of events together, and once in a while I catch up to you either in your Macan or you're in your GT3. You always bring some pretty cool cars, but it's not really the cars for you. It's the driving and the experience that you have with these cars that we're really interested in. So we'll get into that in a bit, but let's go back to Damon, because Damon, with that big grin, the smile, you want to share with the folks why so?
Yeah, so I think it's no surprise to listeners who have been staying up to date on the past couple episodes, but Rob Sass, Porsche Panorama editor, had a 2005 Cayenne. It is now mine.
Nice.
So this is being published about a week or so after I went to pick it up. But to give you context, it's January 8th today. Last night, January 7th, was e-brake day, so newsletter. And sometimes e-brake takes me a long time, 7, 8 p.m. sometimes on a really long day. And but I happened to finish at 6. Rob gave me a call and said, we could just go pick the car up right now. So, Reston, Virginia. So he drives all the way over to the Dundalk area.
Oh, he did pick you up.
Yeah, he picked me up.
Oh, I was kidding when I said he should have picked you up.
I thought that would have made sense, but I didn't know where he was coming from.
Yeah, he called, you want to get picked up? And then we drove out to Reston, got some Chick-fil-A, did the paperwork and all that stuff, and I bought the car.
Nice.
So
I guess traffic is probably pretty light because
it only took me an hour and 3 minutes to get back.
Yeah. So, you lucked out because of the snowstorm we had.
Good.
Yeah. So great car. I think he's talked about it a little bit, or SUV, I should say. One funny thing that I want to note, because this is what happens when you know people and maybe you don't look at the details and all that. I'd been telling myself this car had 114,000 miles.
Yeah.
It actually has 168,000.
168.
He bought it with 130.
Are you sure he didn't switch it to kilometers since he's in Canada so much?
No. I think that I got that number somehow. Talking to him, or some other car he was looking at had 114,000 miles. And so I get there and I jump in, already paid. I'm like, 168,000 miles. But it's all good because I bought on condition. It was really, really well cared for. And Rob has done a good amount of work to keep it maintained for the next person and the person before him.
I think he bought it from the original owner, didn't he?
Yeah, original owner, I believe. A lady who drove it very easily. So
It's in beautiful shape.
Yeah. It has a couple things.
That's an interesting scenario. Many of us get excited about cars and go to buy it, but if you found something where you thought 113,000 miles was a car you were getting, but you're getting ready to sign the paperwork and it's now 168, 170.
Yeah.
He chose to move forward
Because I know Rob.
Okay, so let me ask you two. Would you guys move forward still?
We should talk about the price, about the moving forward thing. So I bought it for $3,600.
Okay.
So would you move forward with that?
Yeah. Ted?
Yeah. No, I would. Usually I'd want a lower threshold for miles before I move forward. But price is a consideration.
Yeah.
Yep.
Manny?
There's so many variables too, because he's not going to drive it as much as I would drive it.
Yeah. It would be your
Their
daily.
commutes
Yeah.
are different and the purpose. So if I was buying a car that I was going to use it the same way Damon was, and I mean, I bought my 964 with 107,000 miles.
Mm-hmm.
Which I always joked at the Ferrari world, that's a dead Ferrari at 107,000.
Yeah.
But for the Porsche, I was like, it's just coming alive. And now it has 165, and really, I have no issues with it.
Yep.
So, yeah, as long as it's been taken care of, 166,000 is so much easier to swallow. It's been taken care of than 107, and there's no records, and it looks very sketchy. And you're thinking this has led a very hard 106,000 or 111,000 miles. So, yeah, it's it'll last over 100,000 miles more, and that'll take Damon forever to put.
If I get
miles
50,000 miles out of it, I'll be happy.
Yeah.
So,
Well, two things. Just like Nathan always says, you buy the seller, right? So in this case, Rob's gone through it, original owner, condition of the car, and let's be honest, the pay to play for this is not that high. So even if you got 10,000 miles out of it, you're still kind of like, you'd be just fine.
I mean, look at my Suburban. It has 275,000 miles. And when we had Project 964, I didn't think twice about towing with it.
yeah.
Yeah.
We went a
You
lot
would
of
go to
different
California
places.
in it.
Yeah, I mean, it
In a
just hooked the
heartbeat.
trailer up, and I was towing pretty fast, so it wasn't like I was babying it. It was,
Yes, we know how you
I
tow.
knew that I've always changed the transmission fluid, differential fluid. I do all the maintenance on it, so I didn't think twice about it.
Yeah. So great car, but he's talked about some of the couple little things that are still wrong with it. But should be some good DIY projects.
Yeah.
The shift solenoid assembly, one of the shift solenoids has gone bad, most likely one of them. And I can either replace the assembly for a good chunk of money or try and diagnose which solenoid is bad, buy a solenoid and install that, remove the old one. So perhaps a video coming up, depending on how feasible it is in PCA's garage. It should be a fun little project car. Got to
Yeah.
be brakes, so...
You said 168,000 miles?
Yeah.
Yeah, mine is 150 something. And but currently my Cayenne is dead.
Yeah.
There was
Crank position sensor.
Did we talk about it on here?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
I thought you were taking it to Miller.
well, when I get some time. I haven't had the time, so it's just sitting there. One bolt, one crank position sensor. So just keep in mind that might be on
to VR6.
but it still has a crank position sensor.
Yep, but it's probably a lot easier to get to.
Probably. That'd be interesting to see how different it is.
Yeah.
Has that car lived other than Rob's
Missouri its whole life,
Oh, Missouri,
from
okay.
what it sounded like, which is where he bought it from, and he's had it in, Minnesota,
Yeah.
or Michigan, I
Michigan.
should say, for the past year or two, and he's driven it 35,000 miles.
Yeah. Well, he's definitely driven it.
What I
So
love about Rob is he gets so excited about a car.
yeah.
I will never sell this. This will be my forever car.
Yeah, we've heard that.
And then what is a year, maybe 6 months later, I can see him scanning on his laptop for something else. And
What did I say when you told me or told us that the BMW that he was looking at was an issue? But I said once Rob sets his mind that he's getting a different car, like the car he
And
currently has he's done with it.
especially since he had his Cayenne sold,
Yeah.
to Damon, that was like money he
It-
was
it
waiting
was-
to spend.
He ended up getting a 2011 328
Oh, E90.
X Drive, maybe, but it's a
E90 wagon.
E90,
Yeah.
but it's in, I believe, diamond shorts metallic with a nicer
Tan interior. Yeah.
deeper tan, which is just a better color combo than his previous E90 wagon.
I was about to say he's had a lot. He's probably had
You
10.
won't be able to write any articles about this wagon. does he?
No,
Like you did
no.
with
He
Cayenne.
likes those.
Yeah,
I don't blame him. All right. Well, thank you for listening. If you aren't currently a PCA member, be sure to grab that VIN, head over to pca.org and set yourself up with PCA membership. If you are looking for a Porsche, try our test drive program. And again, you can just go to pca.org where we'll unlock some resources to help you find that very Porsche for your driveway or garage. Since you mentioned newsletters, I'm just going to go ahead and talk about if you want to receive PCA's newsletters, performance news, e-brake news, and Mart Fresh news, all free e-newsletters, you can go to pca.org and set yourself up and we'll send them straight to your inbox. So with that, let's head over and talk to Ted. So Ted, How did you end up in? Well, let's talk about. Have you always been a car person? Kind of what brought you up and what got you into Porsche?
Yeah. Well, yeah. I've always been interested in cars. Never had the money to be really interested in cars, and so I had cars as a young guy, mostly in drag racing, like most people, because it's easy and it only requires the go pedal. And then eventually I had a Corvette and sold that. And in 1991, I wanted to have another fast car, so I bought a Mitsubishi 3000 GT VR4, and that's what got me into racing.
That was like the Motor Trend car of the year. It was everything. It was turbocharged. It was all-wheel drive. It was four-wheel steering. It was 4 seats. It was like the perfect car.
Right.
But where are they today?
Which I don't know. I see a couple of them, but I don't see many VR4s out there.
No.
It's like, but I had that, and then but that's what scared myself coming home from the dealer, and I asked my wife at the time. I said, "Maybe what do you think of me going to driver's school?" And she said, "Well, that might be a good idea." And so that's what got me off on the trajectory.
If I remember correctly, the VR4 had like what many supercars have, is they have like a special key that you could have like a valet mode versus the full power mode, right? Yeah.
Yep. It was a kind of a really cool car, and so it worked it worked for me at the time. Let's put it that way. It was something I could afford and something that was peppy.
Yeah. Growing up, that was the kind of car that I wanted my parents to buy me. For my first car.
Yeah, I remember that car. Well, I think everyone dreamt of that car, but it was like an adult's car. So the car that you could possibly get was like an Eagle, Talon, TSI, or Eclipse GSXT. That was like the baby version of that
What
car.
was the Plymouth version of the
Laser.
3000? No, the 3000.
Oh, the 3000?
What was the
Stealth,
name?
Dodge Stealth.
That's right.
Dodge Stealth,
Yeah,
yes.
You're right.
Yeah, those cars were so cool. And I think in the JDM world, if you can find those, because I think they all fell into disrepair and ended up in junkyards, but if you can find a clean version, one of those, you're the star of the show. Those cars are pretty rare.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it had 2 gunny seats in the back, and it was kind of like good for me having a family at the time, so it worked.
You said they got you into racing.
Yep.
They got you into a racing school.
Yes, and the school I chose was to go the SCCA route, because at the time SCCA had not brokered a deal with a lot of the private racing schools to get be on track for an SCCA license. So I went to the SCCA school, and while I was there, I met a guy who was an instructor, but he was going to sell his 2002 race car. So I bought that, and that's what got me.
BMW 2002?
BMW 2002.
He had one. I've always wanted one. I have a E21.
Yeah.
He's got BMW. He drives every day. So
Yeah. No. This was a.
full race car.
Yeah. I mean, it was caged and everything. It was a 74, and then I eventually replaced that with a 72. The small bumper car, because it's a little bit lighter under the rules. So it was.
So you did the school with your Mitsubishi?
No.
No, you rented a car?
I rented a 2002, which probably was like trying on a pair of shoes. It kind of like, and then there was one for sale, and I said, well, this seems to fit. Maybe I'll use that. And so the thing I've always done is practice progressivity. I start slow and then stair step up to something faster. And so that's
smart.
It seemed a little, it's got 103-4 horsepower on a good day, and seemed to be the right mode of getting.
So was there someone that was mentoring you, like, or did you do the research? How did you know to go to SCCA? How did you know to get into it?
Yeah. I'd been in and around the community that I was in. SCCA was known, and then I knew the guy that I met that was a driving instructor that I bought the car from. He was an SCCA instructor. Okay, and so that sort of and I didn't know him at the time. And so he was, he happened to fit the bill too. Maybe it was part of his salesmanship, but he helped me maintain the car, yada yada yada.
Oh, okay.
So it all sort of made sense at the time.
And how long did the 2002 last?
From Well, there were two different versions in 2002, and from 91, to 95, I replaced it in 95, and then I ran that one till 2000 when I replaced that with an E36 325.
Okay.
Another progressivity, a little bit faster, a little bit, and then I eventually replaced that with an E46 330, and that was the car that we took IMSA racing.
Ah, okay.
Now, how old were you when you started the driving school?
Well, that's a kind of a personal.
I think it's in your book.
I know.
You published it.
Yeah, I know.
Got to go buy it to find out.
46.
46, all right.
And so,
Manny, there's still hope for us.
I already did it. I'm retired.
I was gonna say
We
not
have
you
our
guys,
races.
but I've got hope.
well,
Damon just wrote us off just like that. He's like, not for you
I
guys.
started racing when I was 37, I think.
Man,
Yeah.
I wish.
36, 37.
well, they were well, not to sort of maybe jump ahead, but that was I've always tried to downplay my age in what I'm doing, not for what you think, but I mean I didn't want to get a break because
Yeah.
I'm older,
Yeah.
and so when we were racing at the 24 in 2021. Who else makes a big deal of my age but Dale Earnhardt Jr. on the broadcast?
Oh, is that
The
right?
most famous racer in racing is highlighting my age, and I'm like, oh my God, I guess the cat's out of the bag now.
Yeah.
And so he was making a joke out of it in a way. He was like, "There's hope for me. There's hope. He said, I can come back."
Exactly.
And so, but anyway, we just tried to downplay it, but it turns out to be an advantage sometimes.
I always used to say that you look at Mario Andretti. I mean, he still looks like he hasn't lost the edge. You know, I'm sure you would offer him a seat in F1, he would not think twice about his age and jump in the car because he still has that competitive streak in him. And I used to always say that racing was cool because unlike other sports where you mid-20s you max out, racing, it was 46 is actually, I think, kind of young for starting club racing because a lot of guys who are younger can't afford to go club racing. So it's very common to see 40-year-olds getting into at least PCA club racing.
Yeah.
And even, I mean, when I was racing, I knew 60-year-olds. Even I knew a guy who was 80 years old that raced a twin turbo S and was faster than me. I was like, this is who I want to be. If I make it to 80, I would love to be racing a 993. I would think it was a 996 twin turbo S.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, nowadays, to be honest with you, it's a little bit different in pro racing because it's the cars are different, the adhesion, the grip level, the G-forces, the attention you've got to give it, all of those things come into a lot of different plays. So and it becomes, at least for me, I think most of the drivers would say as you age, it becomes more. You have to devote effort into staying in shape.
Yeah.
More so. And so that's sort of the key. You got to sort of be.
Well, Manny and I have the whole staying in shape thing down.
Yeah, I know.
We drive slower cars.
I didn't say what that. I didn't say what that shape was, but we stay in a shape.
I didn't say that. I didn't say anything.
I saw. I knew you were thinking it. I knew you were thinking it.
So how'd you go from club racing? Everyone who gets into club racing always says, I would love to go pro. But that is a big jump to go pro.
Yeah, and at the time, I guess I maybe I was stupid because I said, well, we should be able to do that. We can drive at 330 in club racing. We can go do this, and it was more probably focused on experiencing different tracks, and not that we could beat those guys. Kind of a thing, and at the time, the pro racing shoe kind of fit from the standpoint that under the rules in 2006, you could build your own cars. And there was this ecosystem that allowed for cars to be built so that Manny could go and he could get Vu's shop to do this, and then you would buy a tub and you would build a car, you would cage it and do all this kind of stuff, and then Vu's shop would come and run it for you. Well, that's all gone by the wayside now. And you can only buy cars in the classes from a manufacturer
Really?
that has paid the series money to be a manufacturer.
Wow.
Interesting.
So-
I didn't realize that.
So, and so of course Porsche
Yeah.
has done so. Aston Martin has done so. Mustang has done so. I mean Ford.
Yeah.
And so, and in doing that, to be honest with you, the cost of racing has increased. Because, I mean, what do manufacturers do? They sell cars and parts. Okay, and all of the cars in the top class now, which is the GS class, this is not WeatherTech. Okay, in the GS class in Michelin, they're all around 330,000 for a car. And of course, you have to buy the parts from them.
The parts package. Yeah.
Well, it's not a package. You buy whatever you use.
Oh.
And in case it wasn't
But-
mentioned, this is the IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge.
Yes, that is correct. This is the pilot challenge. So to open the door for something you might want to talk about later is like in WeatherTech for a GT car, if they're a real GT3 car, it's about 750, 800,000 for the car.
For the car. Plus.
So and just as an example, in Michelin, and we have to buy the tires from Michelin, who paid the series to be in the series. And so I know Pirelli's sponsoring us too, but they have their
they
their
do.
day in court, and this is sort of how it works. But our 2-car race team for our tests and all, we spend about $500,000 a year in tires. Wow, tires.
Tires.
Here I'm thinking like a set of Hoosier Track Attack Pros might be.
Well,
So let's go back a little bit
Yeah,
before we get into your today's kind of scenario of running a team. But when you decided to go from amateur to pro level, there was probably a number of factors. One is, how did you feel that you had the right talent, and then how did you know what the recipe was to go racing? Was there someone that said you have to do, find that shop, build this car, here's what you can do? Was someone kind of showing you the path?
yeah, I mean, I think it went back to one of the guys that was in SCCA. He knew he had the know-how of doing it, but in all honesty, he didn't have the know-how for the pro level. So, and it was at a time when we did what we could in pro racing with what we had, meaning you three were volunteers. No paid crew.
Yeah.
And if Damon could change a tire, it sort of didn't matter how fast he could change it, because we weren't at that level. So we had the crew that could get us there, the people that could tow the cars, that kind of stuff. So it wasn't kind of the quote unquote operation that we have today. And so it's much more,
So that's more grassroots and volunteers, and really just to be together and say that you raced, as opposed to planning to win and be on the podium each time. Yeah.
right. And then once I got into it, then you started, we didn't run a whole season because we didn't have enough of money. I mean, and so we did what we could with what we had. And, so it's better, to have a team if the four of us are a team, when I don't have to pay you for being there.
Yeah.
And I just have to pay to get you there. And so, that's sort of it. And then,
So we've had drivers, professional drivers, in that same seat that you're sitting in, and racing is a large function of how successful you'll be, but also the business side of racing. And at that point, this beginning point for you, were you thinking sponsorship, or were you just writing the checks out of your own checking account?
it was the latter. I was writing checks out of my own checking account, and I'm still the same way today. because it's hard getting sponsorship.
It's hard, right? Yeah.
Yeah. And because you're in competition for things, I was having a different conversation with Manny, but you're in competition for things against the series. Because if Manny wants to bring his company to be a sponsor of a race team, and he first talks to the series is going to say, well, why don't you put a banner up and let everybody see it rather than just on Vu's car? And so there's a
Sure.
There's
only
animals
so many sponsors in
Yeah, you're going after the same dollars. Yeah.
Yeah, and so because they are who they are, they can afford to take less than we would want. I'd be happy as punch if somebody would pay my tire bill.
Wow. Well, you said what, $500,000?
Yeah. And so, it's like that. So
In round numbers, can you, let's say there's someone that's talented, has friends that are willing to crew. Can you, in round numbers, what was the budget back then versus the budget that you really should have for racing today?
it was probably back then. But a lot of things were different, Phil, because we could build our own cars. Right. You could, you could build a car, buy a tub and build a car for $150,000. Now you got to buy one for $330 because I just bought 3 new ones.
Yeah.
So so it's it's a different world now. And if you're gonna go into it now, it depends on what you want to achieve. If you want to win like us, man, it's going to be $3.5 million, $3 million a year.
Wow.
And that's the Pilot Challenge. That's
Pilot Challenge.
Yeah.
That's not WeatherTech.
Yeah.
So for the listeners who aren't really into racing, for the Rolex 24 coming up, that's the WeatherTech series. That's what you'll see on NBC. What you'll see for the 24-hour race. That's the top rung of racing. But if you go actually to the race at Daytona, there's other races that happen before that race, and that's part of the Pilot Challenge. I think they do the Carrera Cup that weekend.
Sometimes they do, but I don't think they're doing it this year.
So you have like support races that they do, which those racers are as much into it as the 24-hour guys are. It's just a different bracket as far as costs, but it's it's very intense. It's not cheap. It's not cheap racing.
Yeah, well, nothing about racing is cheap, and so, but no, it's, but in WeatherTech, there are a lot of good drivers that are in the Michelin series. As a matter of fact, a lot of NASCAR drivers and WeatherTech drivers can be in our series, and they do it for track time because they're going to race on that track in a day, and so. And the NASCAR guys want to get to it. Like Cole Custer, he's a frequent one. He comes and races in our series because they race road courses. So they're interested in going lefts and rights and all this kind of stuff and getting used to feeling that. So you're in even in our series, you're in with some pretty decent drivers. And so, but certainly in WeatherTech, it's the creme de la creme. It's like, it's people that have won the Indy 500, like Scott Dixon, as Helio Castroneves was a frequent one. So you got a lot of great drivers.
So as a team owner, when those drivers want to kind of come into your series and drive the day before, now do you pay them or do they get paid, or how does that work?
I don't know who does that, but I think the Cole Custer usually drives with a Mustang team. So if any money exchanges hands, I am assuming it comes from Ford.
Ah, okay.
You see what I mean? That supports them team. And
Yeah.
now for us, because we're racing Aston Martins, we could ask for an Aston Martin factory driver.
Lance Stroll.
No, not. I don't think so.
What are the odds that you'll get him?
I actually want some of Lawrence's money more than Lance.
Yeah.
But no, you get. It's kind of an interesting phenomena, but it's those guys are pretty. When you start talking to them, they're actually pretty down to earth, and they're racers. And unless you, a guy like me, unless we do something stupid, it's fine. If you know the rules of the road, the rules of the Daytona 24.
Yeah.
So, and you just, and you're pretty close.
So when you decided and started with the car that you built, does someone say, hey, you got to qualify to make sure you can enter, you have to have these times, you have to have this sort of safety record? Who kind of signs you off that you can join the series?
Usually, I was lucky at the time, though, because at the time, if you have an SCCA license and you were able to get in the SCCA races, and they have criteria to make sure you're within so much of an override percent of the fastest car in your time on the track in your class.
Yeah.
So maybe 130% of the fast time. So you can, but then once I got into IMSA, I'm pretty much standard in there, and I can. I mean, hell, I got an FIA license, so that's I can race anywhere in Europe.
Wow.
And so that's sort of it's an advantage of being older. Once you pass 50, you become a quote bronze rated driver, which is the lowest driver rating, regardless of how fast you are.
There you go.
There you go.
I strive to be a bronze level driver.
You're a member of AARP and a bronze driver.
Give me a sticker for one of those.
Well, now let me give you the flip side. My co-driver, Hugh, is pretty much as fast as everybody out there, and he's bronze.
Oh, really?
And his brother, who drives in the 46 car, just became a bronze.
Bronze is where it's at.
The key in endurance racing is some of the series require you to have a bronze on your driving team.
Okay.
And so if there is a fast bronze out there, you want that person.
Oh, okay.
Like one that runs in prototypes is a guy named Ben Keating. Ben is really fast.
Oh, yeah.
He's the fastest, and he's silver. And so why you would want him as your bronze?
Yeah.
Because it doesn't make any difference from a pit stop standpoint and strategy standpoint who's in the car. So it can be your bronze or your silver, and you're just never going to have platinums. Platinums are all the factories.
Factory.
They're factory drivers. Okay, like Lauren Van Thor, those kind of guys.
And silver is. Can you describe what silver is again?
Silver, basically, it's kind of a wishy-washy kind of a description. There's platinum, and then there's gold, which is non-factory fast guys, and then you're not in a top-notch series. You're going to be silver.
I see.
So it's a kind of a
that makes sense to me. Yeah.
and so that's sort of what they are doing with this is in understanding pro racing, particularly in the United States, everything is subject to what I call the balancer performance adjustments. Bronze or driver ratings is a way to balance off performance. So if you have if you had unlimited money, I mean, in Formula One, that's what the budget caps are. If you had unlimited money, you'd have the best drivers. Pay them all $600 million a year. I'm joking, but I mean, and then have them in there if you had unlimited money. But what they're saying is, I know in Formula One they're not subject to the cap, but I mean, that's how it started. It's a way to balance off performance, and so they make you from a team owner's standpoint, I want to win.
Yeah.
From the series standpoint, they want to see 7 manufacturers within a couple of inches of each other
They
at
want to
the
see
end
good
of the
racing. A good race.
Which I think they've done a really admirable job, because you look at the GTP series last year, and it was close until the end. I think, like to your point, I think every manufacturer won at least a race. So it wasn't like we have with Red Bull in the Formula One, which dominates. Here, it was any given Sunday almost with GTP and the other classes too. That went down to the wire, and that's what they want, right? That's what's going to get the TV ratings,
right? And that's sort of what the series is looking for. The only thing I would tell you with regard to Formula One, at the beginning, Formula One was basically a technology warfare. And so whoever's got the best, smartest technology, that kind of stuff. And so now they're going to have the same kind of scenario in Formula One and in IMSA in the prototypes, with the how much of a proportion of power comes from an ICE motor versus electric. And because the electric motors, because of so much torque, is going to require more playing around with computers and control of TC and how much it comes on and when it comes on. I mean, even in our cars this year with the new Evos, we have a control knob that allows us to select when the boost comes in.
Oh,
Early
super cool.
or late.
Yeah, or late. Yeah.
Okay. And so there's, I suspect, but I don't know, there's some algorithmic kind of a thing where, I mean, why don't you just have full boost? Well, what you're doing is that in a turbocharged car, it depends on the straightaway you're coming out on, you want boost early. Otherwise, the ICE motor will have it on you, and you won't be able to catch them. It's a straight. So that's a way to modulate that for us having a turbo car, but it's not unbounded, if you see what I mean. Just say so if you got a really long straightaway, you can modulate the boost and you'll have more power towards the end of a long straight.
Well, let's talk about the cars. You said you joined when you went pro. You were in an E46.
I have an E46 330. Yes,
330, and that was a car that you built. You said now cars today you have to buy from whoever they say you are allowed to buy from. So now I understand. Hopefully, I think I understand this, because you've been the whole reason why you're here. You're in the Porsche world. You've been in Cup cars, but I've also seen you, I think, Camaro. I've seen you Aston Martin. Is it because as a team owner now, you can only buy, say, 5 different packages, and you're evaluating which makes the most business sense for you for the dollar, and then you learn the cars are kind of all close that you can adjust and learn to drive them?
It's less, well, the learning to drive them and learning how to do the setup comes last.
Okay.
But you're looking for the car that seems to have a better light shining on it regarding BOP. And Will Turner, who races BMWs, he always told me, he said, racing in IMSA is like going to Baskin Robbins. It's the flavor of the month. You got to figure that out, and his business model is driven by BMW. So Will can't change.
Right.
Okay. But it doesn't mean you want to have the best platform that you think positions you. And then when I bought a car from Will that replaced the 330, an E90.
Yeah, and he's Turner Motorsports, right? And he sells all BMW stuff.
Yep. Add-ons, bolt-ons, whatever. And so that's because I was running the E46, and then we bought the E90, so I learned more about that. And so we ran the E90 for several years, and then COVID hit, and we didn't really race much. I guess what we did was, I took off racing because I was involved in a major litigation in 2012. And then when I came back in, that's when we went, I started driving with the Turner car with David Murray. And we kept that for a couple of years until 2016, which is when the advent of the new homologations where the manufacturers were going to build these cars.
Yeah.
Okay, and then we bought 2 Porsches.
Okay.
And we jumped class. We
Yeah.
went to a GS class, and we bought the 2 first generations Porsches.
And does Porsche back then and now, is that something that you go to Porsche Motorsports and say, now I would like to buy these, and do they qualify you, or you just again write the check and they say good luck and we'll support you if you need help?
They all the manufacturers support you to some to some degree at the track. There's engineers at the track. Certainly, if you have any problems with the ECUs and all that stuff, they'll come and fix them if the ECU blinks and it doesn't do certain things. But all of the manufacturers there, they do vary on levels of support, but all of them have some level of support there. There's usually a parts truck there, where you don't have to carry all the parts you need to every race. They're all there.
No, Porsche Motorsport has something like that too.
Yeah.
What'd you say?
Porsche Motorsport has something like 2, I think.
Yeah, but that's who's there.
Yeah.
They have 4 haulers, and they're filled with all kinds of stuff. And so,
Aren't they going around telling you also, or reminding you that your suspension is reaching its hour limit, or your transmission, or telling you these parts need to be replaced?
yeah, what they more do is make sure they send you an email and say your timeouts are here. And so, it's up to you to keep it. Now, for us, we keep track of that because we won the championship in 2018. That the key to that championship, we finished every lap of every race.
Got every point you could.
You don't do that by breaking parts.
Yeah.
And so you want to be out there on the track. In other words, you get a points payday all the time. Now, you want to target being at the upper rung.
Right.
Usually you can win a championship by staying 3 to 5
Yeah.
in the third.
Consistency. Yeah.
Yeah. And because somebody else that you're competing with will have a bad day or mulligan.
Or they maybe don't have enough money to get to all the races.
Yeah, most of the teams in our series, it's probably not money.
Oh.
It's once they're in,
They're in.
They understand what the price of admission is, and so we all are. I just told you we just bought 3 cars. Why do we have a third car? Because we know all the parts are there if we need it,
That's your parts car.
and we don't want to take it apart. Okay?
Yeah.
But if you have to, if you really have to, it's there. A lot of times you can in the series. The rules are each car has a chassis number. It's kind of like a VIN number, but it's real short. And like on our new cars, it's like 027, 28, and 29. Okay, that's so there's 3 cars that were built somewhat in succession. What we can do is if there's something wrong with the car, if we hit a wall or it got damaged, we can petition them to say, this is too structurally bad to repair. Well, they will let us change our entry and put, for my example, the 029 in as the 027 and let you race. And so, and hopefully all your setups will transfer over.
I wonder, so is there any negotiating with the manufacturers on the price of these cars? Like if you buy 3 or
There's not even a warranty.
just like a regular car dealership?
Not even a warranty.
not even a warranty.
Yeah, no, there's no warranty. And so it's like, no. You
gotta
can
pay what you pay.
However, most manufacturers, and I would say Porsche is one that's really, really good about this. If there's something that was wrong with the car, they'll fess up and cover it. I mean, we've had them give us a whole new motor. It's like, no, it shouldn't have happened, and then we'll do it. And that's Porsche Motorsport North America is doing that. And so.
That's motorsports, so everyone with an IMS issue engine don't think Porsche is gonna.
Now, did you have seat time in a Porsche before you bought the race cars? Because you were racing front-engined, rear-wheel drive BMWs. Now you're going into rear-engine Cup cars. Did you wing it, or did you've had Porsche street cars, right?
Yeah, I don't want this to be a whole different conversation. My first Porsche street car was a 2010 GT3 RS purchased new.
That's a good entry level car.
Yeah, we should all start at that
Say
level.
the best of the best.
And so I had this car, and I'll just fill you in and only take a couple sentences. I had this car, and I was tracking it. So 2010, somewhere around 2015, I was at Sebring, and I had one of my crew with me, and I took him through Bishop's Bend, and he actually yelled when we got close to the wall, and he talked to me afterwards, and he said, at least for me, I'd feel a lot better if you were in something that was much more structurally sound.
A dedicated race car.
Yeah. And so at that event, we went and talked to Wright Motorsports, who had a bunch of 991 Cup cars there. And I bought a 991 Cup car, not from them, but I bought a new one. And that became a different kind of, more of a track car. Yeah. And then because I bought that, I bought a 991 GT3 with paddle shifts, so I can make sure I knew how to drive the Cup car.
Yeah.
Because that had paddle shifts.
Yeah.
And so that was sort of my beginning trajectory into Porsche. So 2010, then 2015, and sort of, as I said, the rest is just kind of history.
So you now in our discussion here, you've got the experience, you've got the hardware. Let's talk about what you have to do to prepare now. You talked a little bit about fitness.
I also want to look at the Rolex 24.
Oh yeah,
really. That's why I brought Ted here, was because he has the experience of running the 24, and by the time you listen to this, the 24 is 10 days away, I think.
Yeah.
And so for a lot of people who watch the Rolex 24 and NBC or going down to watch the race itself, you may not know what goes on behind the scenes or how the teams operate. It, dare I say, can become boring because they're racing for 24 hours. And the old days, it was even worse because they would have 30-lap leads between first and second place. And that was like, you knew who was going to win like 3 hours prior. Now IMSA has done a great job, like to Ted's point, in keeping the classes close together. But Ted and I were talking at Cars and Coffee about the Rolex 24, and I thought he had so many good stories and behind the scenes of what goes on that I equated it to like baseball. A lot of people watch baseball, think it's boring, and that's simply because they don't understand the strategy involved, how every pitch is critical, and what the infield's doing when the batter's up. All this is critical, but if you don't know it, you really can't appreciate it.
Yep.
So the Rolex 24 in itself is something that Porsche has gone after from almost the beginning. Every manufacturer wants to win the Rolex 24. If you watch Ford versus Ferrari, Ford was trying to win the Rolex 24. Why? What makes the Rolex 24 so important in motorsports?
I mean, I think it's a combination of things. I think you're going to get nowhere near the challenge of the banking any place else in the world for as long as you're on it. And with Daytona, it's basically 2 1/4 mile straightaways with a bunch of little turns in the middle. And so what happens is while driving at night isn't really an issue. If it is, it's on the infield because the apices aren't as well lit. But when you're on the banking, it's like daytime. I mean, the track needs to tell the city of Daytona when they're going to run the lights because they have to inject more power into the power grid.
Really?
Oh.
It's a big drain. It's like it's daytime.
Yeah.
And so, and that's what the challenge of it is I would have to say, Manny, is driver degradation. And it's the it's the wearing on you for there's if you drive a 20-minute stint in a club race, it's different than driving an hour. It's an exponential relationship in your degradation. And so you need to be prepared for what might happen. And as you add stints, lack of sleep, lack of potential food, that was a problem with me. You have to force yourself to eat. I like to drive on empty. Wrong. It's wrong. Okay? Because if you don't have the proper nutrition,
Your body needs the energy. Yeah.
So it's all of that kind of stuff. And it will vary based on the driver, but I guess the key is conditioning and making sure you can get through it all. And what they'll do, my co-drivers, what we did in the 24, we take the 4 drivers in the 2 cars in Michelin and run them in the 24. Okay. And that's nobody else does that. And so that's kind of part of it. So they've already run this other 4-hour race the day before. Now they're going to run the 24.
Wow.
And that's not something that we get a medal for, but that's sort of all
Is that
speaks
because
to
they're-
the conditioning.
I was going to say, are they young that they can do back-to-back like that?
I don't think it's young. I think it's conditioning. And I think it's Matt Plum just turned 50, and Hugh Plum is 55. And I'd put them up against any of the other guys. Paul is 27, so he's okay. He's youngish.
Yeah.
And so, but he's in sort of good shape. And so what you get into, it's, in a normal stint is somewhere between 52 and 55 minutes. Okay. Why? That's because our fuel cells are sized when that's when we're going to run out of fuel. So you're going to have to stop. And so then you get into, like, if you stop, if you're not going to change drivers, you could. Well, you could double stint. We could double stint Manny, or we could triple stint him. So, and then
It's like
you get
3 hours of racing.
Well, yeah.
Triple sit. Wow.
I'm just thinking I do like 2 go-kart races, 20 minutes, and I can't hold my arms up the next day.
Well, these, these guys and girls are phenomenal athletes.
Yeah.
It's not, and that's why we try to maintain ourselves in shape, not for bulk strength, but for strength over a longer period of time.
Yeah.
It's the endurance. So we're on the, as far as exercise, we're on the lower weight, higher reps ends of the spectrum. Right. So we're trying to make sure that we can make it. And when I'm, as I told Manny, I mean, I have no secrets. I'm the weakest link of the drivers. Okay, I'm the slowest one. I'm the oldest one.
Yeah.
And so what my teammates will do is they will do whatever we think needs to happen to cover me. And so, but because in the 24, our minimum drive time is 4 hours. So they want to get my drive time met as soon as possible.
As soon as possible, yeah.
So that they can have flexibility. And what they'll try to do is your listeners might want to know is the bad stuff, for whatever reason, happens at night. I don't know whether it's, I don't think it's lighting, but I think it's physical and mental degradation. And so, and the old adage is, if you make it through the night, then you can start racing, okay? Because you got a whole car.
Right.
And that's sort of what the objective is, to try to make it through the night. And then you can kind of have, see who's left, part breakage, whatever, and then you can sort of take it from there. But it's more of a what they try to do with me personally. They try to work around the strategy where I won't drive as much at night. Dusk and dawn, no problem. They're trying to, because they know the bad stuff happens at night. And just remember, just like on your commute to work, it's not what you do, you get wrapped up in somebody else's
Right.
problem.
Sure.
And so that's sort of what you've got cars that may not be as well maintained or whatever. If your crew also, if you see something, you say something. If something doesn't look right, you need to say something about it, and you need to fix it. And so you need people that are alert and making sure that and that goes for the other teams. And so, but no.
I imagine at night, if a car's coming up to pass you, you have a spotter that's telling you who's coming. So because you can't see what kind of car it is at night with those headlights, even though the track is lit, right?
Yeah, and it's even more than that. Yes, we have a spotter. Yes, and what we do, we put orange lights on the tops of the cars so that the spotter can see them across. However, in all of the WeatherTech cars, not the Michelin cars, WeatherTech, because we're racing at night, the cars have a rear view camera. Not a big deal, because all cars have rear view cameras. That's active all the time. That's basically, you have a convex mirror, but that is your rear view mirror. In a WeatherTech, and when I say WeatherTech, it goes for the prototypes too. That camera has radar in it, and it monitors up to 40 objects that are behind you.
Oh, did not know
And
that.
what it will do is it will put an arrow on the object whose closing rate is fastest.
Oh, wow.
And so when you couple
Did not know
that
that.
together with there's a lot of inputs that we're dealing with here. Okay. And so you got the spotter, which at the 24 will say, okay, you've got two prototypes behind you, and the spotter can tell whether they're in effect a P1 and P2 or whatever. They can tell by the lights which ones. And he's saying that you've one of them is going to catch you by the bus stop. The other will get you at the exit. Watch for them.
So that rear view camera's data is broadcasted to you in the car and to the team?
No, it's just to us. It's just for the camera.
Yeah, I was going to say, because I've never seen
No.
that screen on the TV.
No.
And,
It's really
Well, when I say broadcast, I meant like, are you the driver the only person that sees that data, or your team?
Right, the
Does your-
driver.
The driver.
the team doesn't see that.
So you have to communicate what is on the screen and what's telling you?
we don't tell them that. We just use it for inputs. The spotter is the one that's telling us that there are two prototypes coming up, or he can tell us there's a prototype and a GT car coming.
Okay.
And one car will catch you by this. The value of the spotter is that when we're on the banking, all right, if you're the slower class, you're hugging the line down the bottom.
Okay.
Okay. And so if there's another car beside you, they're only going to be a foot away. Well, if there's another car beyond them, the spotter needs to tell you that, because your mirror could probably pick up this one, the one next to you.
Yeah.
It can't pick up the one that's up against the wall.
Yeah.
So basically what they're saying is, don't move.
Stay put.
This is in English.
Yeah.
And so that's sort of what and it's very important to understand these things, because when they went to for GTD Pro and GTD Am, well, it's Pro Am, but in fact, green versus red, red's Pro, and so they have we have the same cars. We never used to have the same cars. When there was, GTLM, they were a different car. And when we would come out of the bus stop and there was a GTLM car beside us, you could hear it hit sixth gear and it would start to pull away. Now, guys stuck there for a while. Well, that complicates our life with traffic, because it allows prototypes and stuff to get on the outside. So it's very important to note that they're there, okay? Because if you move a little bit, and the only thing I'll tell you, I got into the car in the 24 hours, and I just get in the car. I don't look. I just get in the car, get ready to go, and I take off. And I'm out of the pits. I'm like, this car's got no mirrors on it. What do you guys do to it? And so it didn't have any mirrors. So I had the camera. I had the camera and that. It was it.
Good.
So you, these are aids, and so you have to, it's your adaptability. The longer the race, the more adaptation you're going to have to do with whatever goes wrong or things will happen. It's whatever. And so the other thing I think your listeners might be interested in, it's important for people to understand why we need to know what the other cars back there are. The speed differentials in between like a GTD car and a prototype is not necessarily the greatest on the banking.
Interesting.
It's on corner entry.
Corner. Okay.
Because going into turn one, there's a couple of seconds, where the GTD car is full on its brakes, and the prototype is still on the throttle.
Wow.
So you get this
Yeah.
very desperate speed differential, and you can't move.
Yeah.
You just they got this, and the prototypes coexisting, like in life, is the same thing. Knowing what the other cars can do. I mean, what I was always told to do, and it's the right thing to do, I capture the inside. A prototype can go anywhere. It's got ungodly amounts of downforce.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Let them go on the outside. Let them run over the pickup. Let them worry about getting rid of it. They're some of the greatest drivers in the world. They can do it. So don't allow them to take the inside and you go deal with that stuff, you know? So it's all of these interpretive pieces that allow you to coexist. And that's sort of what you want
So
to
in
do.
that corner, you have to focus on driving your race and driving your car's capabilities, because you don't want to see a prototype and think that, oh, I can wait a little bit longer to brake, because they can, because they have the brakes and the arrow, but you don't necessarily have that to match.
Well, also too, I mean, when if you're in, there are races within races. Mm-hmm. Okay, so when there's another class car of yours that is on your tail, you want to do the best you can to get out, and you will have diagnosed being on the track with them. Like if I'm racing another GTD car, whether I'm better out of the corner than they are, vice versa. Okay. And so you will know what corner you're better at, your exit or your entry. And so that's sort of, what you're doing. And then you're trying to maximize your race while you being passed with the prototypes, and you don't want to mess up their race.
Right. Right.
And so you're trying to make, this is kind of a legal term, a reasonable accommodation so that everybody coexists.
Oh.
Everybody coexists. Because in a way, if you don't do that, to be honest with you, that's how you get a bad name.
Yeah.
If you're erratic or you're moving around, because it's predictability. It's everything that you've taught in school, Annie.
Yeah,
and so it's making sure you don't do anything.
You watch on TV, and I can only imagine the pressure, because let's say, like you said, you're racing a car in your class, and here comes some prototypes, and these guys in prototypes aren't patiently waiting for you guys to make room. You just see them. You can see the headlights starting left and right, and they're looking for the first hole. And this happens in it feels like less than a second that they're trying to get by you, and you're like watching TV and you're clenching. You're like, oh my God, they're going to hit. But the prototype, obviously, his spotter must be telling him also that you got two cars that are racing for class in front of you. Be careful. But to your point about having the ungodly grip, they will go like the absolute worst part of the track and go right by him. It's
Yep.
But that must be incredible pressure watching. If there's two of them or three of them, use all these sets of headlights behind you.
Yep.
Just going left and right, trying to get by you.
There's a lot to process there, and you're talking about staying mentally capable, physically capable, and Manny wrote this on our notes here is this. With Daytona also comes the weather factor. You've got heat to deal with, and in some cases you have wet weather
and cold weather.
And cold weather.
Freezing.
Yeah.
We were, what was it, 2 years ago? Some friends were coming down. It was probably 23. Some friends were coming down. And so I was talking to them on the phone, and I said, okay, this is what you got to do. I would go to the layered approach, wear something that you could put on, have a windbreaker, have a ski cap. And they were like, Ted, it's Florida. It's going to be 70. And I said, it was 28 degrees here last night.
Yeah.
And they said, oh, my God. Well, that kind of the rain we can understand, and that is more what I'll call track centric. You just need to know where the water's going to pool, where and with the banking, it's going to flow downhill. So you don't want to be down here, down low.
Yeah.
So you want to be up high on any track. You want to be up high because that's
Above the puddle.
Yeah.
well, but also think about it this way. Down low is where a lot of people go. Anyway, if there's nobody around, you want to be down low. Why? It's a shorter circumference.
Right.
So that's where all the stones get polished. So you got polished stones, water, that water is down there, and then water is running down. So stay
high.
Go where the grip is. And so you've got that kind of stuff. And but the cold can change your tire wear and how you want it. And in the cold weather, that's a time to double stint tires or triple stint tires if it can save you time.
So they're not wearing as fast then,
Right.
Are you saying?
Okay. And so, but then that means there's not as much tire deg, so that it's not as much grip. So that means you're potentially playing with your traction control. And we have traction control knobs on our steering wheels. So we can change traction control levels by it's a little pinwheel, kind of like you adjust a radio volume. It's just what side it's on.
Yeah.
And so you can just
You can choose traction side to side.
I'm going to say that's not on the street car.
Oh, okay. I was about to say.
No.
What?
Meaning, what I meant by that is on our present cars, the traction control is over here and the wiper speed's over here.
Okay.
So that's what I mean.
Okay.
You
I was
change-
like, wow, that's really high tech. You can control it.
Well, what'll happen is most of these cars, we have a Bosch dash, and up on the real dash, there are two things that protrude up, and that's our TC lights, and how much TC engagement you're getting, the lights will flash.
Oh, okay.
And so what they'll do for me, they'll if depending on what Hugh thinks, because he usually drives before I do, and so if he thinks I'm gonna need it, he'll put the TC on a certain level, because when we come out of turn 6, that's when you come out of the infield to go out into the banking.
Yeah.
He's going to be telling me, floor it. So you're facing the wall, and he's telling you to floor it. And he knows it's not going to spin out. It's only going to feed you enough. And then when there's an interchange about how much TC engagement we're getting by the lights, then they'll say, well, go to TC3. So they're giving you information about how to adjust it. So that's sort of, you've got these TC things. Same thing on the sides of the dash, ABS engagement. See what I mean?
Yeah.
So you have it too much, too little. Ideal conditions, it could be TC1, but not TC1 or ABS1. But
How many races do you do in a year, roughly?
10.
10. And how many days for those 10 race days are you practicing?
Well, we'll have what drives our budget, and including our tire budget, is we will try our best to test on if we're running for a championship, we're going to test at every track we're going to go to before we go there.
Okay. So is
For
it set up like a couple days before the race?
No,
Or
there's a limit on how long before the race we can go there.
oh, really?
Yeah,
Okay.
and it's usually like 10 days, unless and you can get 2 waivers a year, and those usually come. It's dependent on who gets the track day rental and how close they are. So VIR is typically one where we use a waiver because it's less than a week before. But like Daytona, we've already been to Daytona. We were there the 17th and 18th of December. So we were there, and so another thing, I'm looking at Manny. Another thing your viewers or listeners might be interested in that you can't sort of get to too many other places than what I'm going to tell you. They've reconfigured the curbing in the bus stop, and folks are going to have to change their line slightly. Going through there, it's kind of the entry is sort of kind of similar, but for you're either going to have to be a little bit farther left or get the car turned earlier before you can get exit, because the curbing is a little bit less desirable to run over.
I know exactly
Wow,
what you're
really?
So I don't know. I don't know why they did that. Maybe to slow us down or whatever. So it's all of that. So that's a reason to go beforehand. So if you see, I know Mid-Ohio, they just repaved part of it. So we're going to have to make sure we go there, and that's already on the calendar. So you want to, and so you need experience on what you're going to run on. That's the message. And so, I mean, and where I'm coming from, at least in pilot, we won the championship last year. We won everything there was to win. And so, literally, I don't think it'll ever be done again. Not a pat on my back, but it's like,
Feels nice, doesn't
the
it?
46 car, the 46 car won the drivers' championship and caused us to win the team championship. Hugh and I won the bronze championship, and we substantially contributed to winning the manufacturers' championship. So, it's
Now that's in the Aston Martin.
in the Aston Martin.
Does Aston do anything for you? Because that was like the only championship they won, right?
Discount on the next car?
Unfortunately, Manny, the answer is not that much.
Yeah.
And,
Wow.
and so, and we, including discount on cars, I guess.
Yeah.
I guess but we're, that's sort of what we're, we decided to go, and I mean, here's another thing. We decided to go with the Evo, which is the new generation. It's got more downforce. And so, which in theory should allow it to use more of its boost capacity to push a hole in the air. And we found out with a lot of the setup information that we had on the non-Evos doesn't just transfer to the Evo. So we're still trying to struggle with what we should do as far as setups go. And so, we'll see.
Does IMSA give you? I know you said you have 2 test days waivers for a new model. Do they cut you a break or anything? Nope. So you're
No.
Learn it within the.
Yeah,
what you provided.
what the manufacturer will do. I mean, well, think about it this way. It's like the manufacturer's perspective is, what do they want to do? Same thing as Porsche. They want to sell cars and parts. And so they, a manufacturer in the series wants to sell cars and parts. And what they want is as many teams to buy their car as possible, because it helps them sell parts.
Yeah.
And what we like as teams, if we were to, we would like to be the only one who bought a Porsche. Why? Because it allows us to control, to some extent, the BOP on the car.
Nobody else to compare to.
No, yeah.
Same chassis.
You
Well,
are the reference point.
Yeah, well, what winds up happening, the way they do it, after each race, they have this mystical BOP model, which nobody knows what it is. And the highest performing car of each of the 4 makes that are here, where each make goes into the model. And there's like 10 track segments. And so it's looking for where Vu is better or worse than Manny or Damon. And so it's all, and somewhere out of this model comes, Damon's got to add 10 pounds, or he's got to go to a different boost map. Each of the cars have at least three or so boost maps for the turbos. For the normally aspirated cars, they mandate a flat plate restrictor, like the Porsche. And so same way would be with the Mustangs. And so they're either generally it's more restricting the airflow.
You know what Ted told me, which I never knew, that they can also restrict the fuel flow when they're filling up fuel.
Really?
Yeah. So
Yep.
it's they make
So
part,
part
of the BOP.
They're adding time to your pit stop.
Yeah, well,
Wow.
and if you're the one way for Damon to beat me is to stop less
Yeah.
Yeah.
in general. So the more and what we have to do is we use the way to win championships in endurance racing. You have to be really up on your game on fuel strategy. And so we will. It's like your driveway, particularly in the snow. You want the slowest, narrowest ramp in order to get up there. Well, that's what we do as far as fuel strategy goes. We start saving fuel way at the beginning of the stint.
And that leads me to another question. How much are you racing other cars in a long race like 24 hours compared to how much are you just running your own operation to make sure that you make it to the end of the race with the fuel strategy how you wanted it?
Yeah, I think what you have to do in a 24-hour race, it's in the 24 hours of Daytona, because you have such I'm not talking about our team necessarily, but the drivers are all really good. So these races have become the balance between endurance and sprint is at best obscured. Because if you got really good drivers and they're in good shape, it's a sprint. And so that affects their fuel burn and their fuel strategy. But then what you have to do is like, it's kind of like, in a way, when I used to run foot races and run marathons, it's like you say, well, it's a marathon is a 6-mile race after a 20-mile run. And so you get a certain chunk behind you, then you know what you got. And it's what I told you earlier, Damon. You know who's left, who of your competitors are left, and so then you can start to formulate what your fuel strategy is and all that kind of stuff. And of course, with the longer race, the number of yellows plays into that.
Yeah.
In Michelin, if our races are only the longest 2 races are 4 hours, but it's normally a 2-hour race. So the way our cars are set up in Michelin, and then is 52, 55 minutes of fuel burn, 2-hour race, 120 minutes. It's all green. It's 2 tanks plus a splash. Okay.
Yeah.
Crudely.
Yeah.
Okay. So now what you're doing is you're working with a small window and how to influence the splash or eliminating the splash. Okay. And so yellows can help you eliminate that, or your fuel burn for the first 2 fills can kind of mitigate that. In a 24-hour race, it's harder to chunk that up. And so, and you overlay that with the fact that the really good guys are driving like crazy. I mean, that's,
Wow.
I mean, even our guys, we have what I told Manny on our dash. It tells us how many liters we've burnt, but it also tells us our fuel burn per lap. And so we've known that through the tests that we've had even before the race. So we know what to expect at each and then when they've articulated their fuel burn strategy of how much we should burn, 3 liters a lap, 2.5 liters a lap, whatever it is, then what they will start doing if we're starting to be close or they're worried about it, they will start asking us what's the fuel burn per lap number each time we cross the start finish line, just to get. They're trying to say, was their projected right, or is it different because the day and the weather was a little bit different? And so that's sort of all ways to corroborate the forecast of the strategy, because the key in our view is the fuel strategy and what we've got to do. And so we're, and you could say, there's an argument that it takes a little bit of racing out of it because we're running to a number, but just like last year's race, in the Michelin race, the 4-hour race, I asked Hugh, was his brother, because I've been watching his race videos, was his brother on a fuel strategy? And he said, yeah, I think he was, because I could tell how he was catching the guys, but he wasn't passing them.
He was choosing to do so.
He was choosing to not pass.
Yeah.
And so, and it's also to save fuel, I don't know if your listeners would want to know this, but you can watch for the arc through the corner. If they change their arc through the corner, it will help them burn less fuel. Or if they can't really see this on TV unless they give them the brake and throttle application, but they can lift earlier.
Yeah.
It's called lift and coast. So they lift a little earlier, and basically when we're racing, brake as late as possible. Okay.
Right.
Well, you don't do this. You're kind of, and that's what I saw in Matt's video. I'm like, so it's just how he was lifting and coasting, and how he was coming up on the backs of which happened to be BMWs. I was like, yeah, he was. So it's like more, just like I was watching one of Paul's videos, and I could tell on our videos, we have a throttle and a brake bar. One's green, one's red. And you can see relatively, and I looked at Paul's and I said, you're left foot braking. He was like, yeah, I am. He's the only one of the three of us that are. So you can, and because there's a split second where the brake and the throttle are kind of one at the same time. He's preparing to throttle, and he's not fully off the brake. And so he is
blending a little.
He is mistimed, in my mind. Whereas if you're all right foot breakers, if we're on the brake, we can't be on the throttle.
Yeah.
Okay, so we got to get off of one and go to the other. And so that's sort of, it's but if they ever show that on the coverage, it's a way to look at it and see what they're doing. You can, most of those guys, the really good guys are probably left foot braking.
Yeah.
And
wow.
With me, I'm too old to learn left foot braking, but it's like driving a go-kart. It's the same thing.
Yeah.
I tell myself every time I try to do left foot braking that it's like a go-kart, but it just never feels like a go-kart.
Never feel.
I worked at a indoor karting place for 2 years, so I'm not bad at it. But I don't use it on the road in the dry, but in the snow, like in a front-wheel drive car, I love left foot braking.
I go through cycles that I try to do that for like a couple of months, and then I don't. So, well, this has been extremely fascinating, Ted. Thank you so much, and Manny, kudos to you for getting him on the podcast. Let's get into Porsche news. We already went through the newsletters. Make sure you sign up for those at psa.org. And we continue the theme of racing because you're talking about IMSA as well in the news.
Yeah, normally January, the winter months are slow for Porsche news, at least in January. But this was pretty interesting since we have the Daytona 24 coming. I'm going to mispronounce his name. Jean-Maria Bruni. He used to drive for Porsche in the 963 in WEC. Has now moved over to JDC Miller, driving a 963. So kudos for them for picking up another 963 pilot. So
and even earlier, Ferrari. That's how I remember him.
That's really
funny enough. Yeah.
And so he's you're going to see him driving the I guess they're so yellow, the JDC Miller 963. So it's going to be a lot of fun. For those who are aware, Porsche won last year with the 963 overall at the 24. So. All eyes are going to be on that 963 to see if not Penske, maybe JDC Miller can take the top rung.
There you go. Let's talk about events coming up. Works Reunion, Amelia Island, March 7th. Judge entries have sold out. We still have room in the corral, so we look forward to seeing you there. Make sure you sign up. Treffin Homestead, which is April 30th through May 4th, Hot Springs, Virginia. We will be at the Omni Homestead Resort. Registration will open February 5th. Porsche Parade heading to Oklahoma City, July 6th through 12th. Registration will be later on in February for round 1. Treffin at Sea, the 70th anniversary cruise, where we'll be cruising out of New York along the northeast coast, August 30th through September 6th. And registration for that is open. We already have over 850 PCA members ready to sail with us for that. And any videos you want to talk about, Damon?
I feel like we're recording this January 8th, and I feel like I'm still playing catch up from the end of the year and just sort of a blitz of videos that we did. But the BB Auto 911 Targa Hybrid video should be done by the time this comes out. I think actually that'll come out a week or two before you hear this. So check that out. Very cool air-cooled car with a hybrid engine. Tons of horsepower, a lot of fun to drive. And check out our channel. Subscribe if you haven't. We'd love to notify you when our videos.
Yeah, comment, and subscribe. Subscribers now are, I think we're almost 105,000 subscribers on
just
YouTube.
About.
Next stop is a million. So
Next stop is a million. We're each and every one of you can make a difference. All right, and for those of you that are looking to do some racing, but maybe do it in the comforts of your own home, check out PCASimRacing.com. Do you do any sim racing, Ted?
Actually, not racing. I play with a simulator every once in a while, but most of mine is actually watching race videos and look at different videos of my teammates.
Yeah.
Nice.
So,
We've got PCA Insider swag up at the PCA web store. Head up there if you want some Insider mugs. Let's see, we've got shirts. We've got what else do we have? Water bottles and such.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for a PCA Insider decal, just send us your address information to podcast@pca.org, and we'd love to send you a set, and you can show them off to all your friends and family. Anything else before we wrap up this edition of PCA Insider?
it's hard to believe that the Rolex 24 is almost upon us.
Yeah.
And but that usually means that Amelia Island and Tech Tactics aren't too far away.
And again, if you're heading to Daytona, dress in layers. I say
I don't think we've had it snow, but I know at the Reward it snowed.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, because remember the guys from Porsche? I think Jens Walter was telling us they were blown away because to Ted's point, they were like, we're in Florida. I thought it was supposed to be warm, but nope.
a little insider tip is make sure you visit PCA's Corral, and we have a tent, we have TV, we have snacks and water, and there should be some 70th anniversary PCA swag surprises that will be there. Of course, we talked about the 70th anniversary. Yeah, turn four. That's where we're at. This January issue of Panorama will have your 70th anniversary decal for you. So flip through the pages of that. It'll be in there.
I will say that Robert Miller emailed and said that you can let Vu and Manny know I have a golf cart at the Rolex, so they do not have to walk.
Oh, really?
Are you going to the Rolex? I'm not going to the Rolex.
Unfortunately,
Now you have to go.
I would. Man, that means a lot. It
It
really
does,
does mean a lot because we park far
Yeah,
away.
we don't have any special passes or anything,
Literally
so
in a different zip code.
We get the regular general admission ticket and park in the shopping center across the street.
Yeah, exactly.
We used to park where the NASCAR headquarters was because that's where the shuttle bus would
It's
come.
not really available to park there now. You got to park all the way out by the mall. Well, thank you so much for the offer. If we were there, we probably would take you up on it. But for now, thank you everyone for listening. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe. Consider sharing our show with fellow Porsche enthusiasts. We'd love to continue to grow our presence. Until next time, stay safe. Ted, thank you again.
Yeah, good luck this year.
Good luck to you.
Yeah,
We'll be
look,
watching you.
a repeat on the championship.
There you go.
Even though it's with an Aston Martin.
But no, he's one of us.
That's right.
Stay safe, and we'll catch you down the road.